Download this code from codegive.com, link in the description below. Creating a service connection in Azure DevOps allows you to integrate Azure services with your Azure DevOps pipelines. This tutorial will guide you through the steps to create a service connection to Azure using the Azure DevOps UI, and I'll also provide a code example using Azure CLI. Prerequisites: 1. An Azure DevOps organization. 2. An Azure subscription. 3. Permissions to create service connections in Azure DevOps. Steps to create a service connection in Azure DevOps. Step 1. Sign into Azure DevOps. 1. Go to Azure DevOps, https://dev.azure.com. 2. Sign in with your Azure DevOps credentials. Step 2. Open your project. 1. Select your organization. 2. Click on the project where you want to create the service connection. Step 3. Navigate to project settings. 1. In the lower left corner, click on the gear icon to open project settings. Step 4. Create a service connection. 1. Under Pipelines, click on Service Connections. 2. Click on New Service Connection. 3. Select Azure Resource Manager from the list of available service connection types, then click Next. Step 5. Choose the authentication method. You have two main options for authentication. Service Principal, Automatic, recommended for most users. Service Principal, Manual, useful for advanced scenarios. Option 1, Service Principal, Automatic. 1. Choose the Service Principal, Automatic, option. 2. Select your Azure subscription from the drop-down. 3. Click on Authorize. This will prompt you to log into your Azure account and grant permissions to Azure DevOps. 4. Once authorized, select the resource group, optional, or subscription where you want to deploy resources. 5. Enter a name for the service connection. 6. Click Save to create the service connection. Option 2, Service Principal, Manual. 1. Choose the Service Principal, Manual, option. 2. Provide the following information. Service Principal ID, the application ID of your Service Principal. Service Principal Key, the key, password, for your Service Principal. Tenant ID, the directory, tenant, ID of your Azure Active Directory. 3. Select the Azure subscription from the drop-down. 4. Enter a name for the service connection. 5. Click Save to create the service connection. Step 6. Verify the service connection. 1. After saving, you should see the new service connection listed on the Service Connections page. 2. You can test the connection by clicking on the ellipsis, 3 dots, next to the connection and selecting Verify. Using Azure CLI to create a service connection. If you prefer using scripts or automation, you can create a service connection using Azure CLI. Below is an example of how to create a service principal and then create a service connection. Step 1. Create a service principal. Open your command line interface and run the following command. This command will return JSON output containing details about the service principal, including the app ID, password, and tenant. Step 2. Create a service connection in Azure DevOps. You'll need to install the Azure DevOps CLI extension if you haven't already. Now, you can create a service connection using the following command. Conclusion. You have now successfully created a service connection in Azure DevOps to your Azure subscription. This connection can be used in your pipelines to deploy resources, manage configurations, and integrate various Azure services. Feel free to explore and modify the service connection settings as per your requirements, and don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions.